Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Welcome to the Performance Matters podcast from GP Strategies, your talent transformation partner. In each episode, we'll interview industry experts and explore best practices and innovative insights to help your organization improve performance.
Another really important factor here is the fact that it has to be tested at the end. You know, the core takeout from the organization is that all of these people have done this training and have scored something out of something which is deemed acceptable. And therefore it's very heavily testing oriented, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the testing element of compliance training is the other sort of really big part of it that makes it different, perhaps. And the reason that you're testing people is perhaps different. So it's all part of this challenge of demonstrating that the requirements have been met. And as I said earlier, CBT made it really easy to assess learners and produce reports, all sorts of reports. And this was seized upon by regulators, internal audit, who obviously are a really important audience when we're talking about compliance training, and senior managers as well. So it depends what you mean actually by testing. I mean, for some courses, they want to actually demonstrate that someone's completed the course, but that's generally not enough for compliance. They also historically tend to have, the end of course assessment that we all know and love attached as standard. So that's the sort of reputation, I guess, that compliance courses have. You know, your standard, typically quite long course with an end of course assessment at the end. In practice, unfortunately, and this has been sort of documented in the media, unfortunately for a few firms, employees began to share their answers. So in order to prevent that or prohibit that, question banks got longer and longer and longer and randomized, so that that made that more difficult, which is one of the reasons that question banks are so long often in compliance courses. Another problem was that what do you do if an employee fails? So in the compliance world, that's very difficult to handle. No one wants that admin worry, nor do they want to share those figures with regulators or internal audit. So as a result, actually, a lot of compliance courses are impossible to fail. You're just sort of caught in a continuous loop of doing the question bank and potentially the course as well until you reach that magic 80% pass rate and you're finally released from the course. So compliance question banks have a really, really bad reputation, I think. And it's actually really difficult to ask questions, particularly multiple choice questions on compliance topics. Because if it's a topic where you're going to be testing someone and their pass or failure depends on that question, it's got to be very, very black or white. And you can't really explore the grey areas in those end of course assessments. So, when doing a compliance test, the correct answer is usually the longest one, or it's the one that says escalate your concern. So they're usually quite easy to guess. If you test people on facts, which is my real bugbear, if you ask people what does this acronym stand for, it's of very limited value testing that, and they're unlikely to retain that information for very long anyway. And even if you try and ask scenario-based questions, knowing what you should do is actually very different from being willing to do it in the real world. And that's particularly important or true if you're looking at something like escalation, reporting, and whistleblowing. So, there are a lot of issues, I think, with that traditional end of course assessment approach.
The Performance Matters podcast is brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we can create a world where business excellence makes possibilities achievable. You can subscribe to the show anywhere you get podcasts or listen on our website at gpstrategies.com.